Okay.
Great. Teamwork. I love it. Thank you. Okay. All right. Well, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Erin Maney, and I'm the project manager at Open SUNY for the Communities of Practice. I'm also a member of the SUNY OER Services team. On behalf of the SUNY OER Services team, I want to welcome you to our fourth webinar in our Showcase series. This Showcase webinar series is a program that we offer monthly at SUNY OER Services with the aim of featuring OER faculty champions from across our diverse community of practitioners. These are faculty who have elevated their teaching practice by incorporating OER into their courses, and in doing so, they've positively impacted their students' learning experience and made higher education more accessible, affordable, and engaging. So we're excited to share today's webinar with you. We are pleased to host Lorena Mathien, Assistant Professor of Business at Buffalo State College. Lorena has been a fantastic faculty champion for OER at her institution. She received her PhD from the University of Buffalo in Operations Management and Strategy in 2012, her MBA with a concentration in International Business from the University of Buffalo in 1996, and her Bachelor's in Marketing Management from Syracuse University in 1992. She has over 17 years of industry experience and independently contracts on smaller projects with local companies. So welcome, Lorena, and I thank you for sharing your time and expertise with us today. I'll go ahead and stop sharing so that you can share and advance the slides. Okay. And also, by way of administrative details, you can feel free to type questions in the chat. I will monitor the chat for Lorena, and we'll have a Q&A at the end as well.
All right, somehow I lost my Zoom. Hold on.
See, we see your screen. Do you want to stop sharing and choose your application again?
Okay. Yeah, when I stop sharing, I get the Zoom back, but all right, just bear with me. This is my first time using Zoom with you guys, so we practiced the one time, so.
Yeah, no, you're fine.
All right.
And you might lose everybody's, visual, but we'll be able to see your desktop, and I'll let you know if we can't see something.
Okay. For some reason, I cannot. I'm having trouble sharing just my, yeah, it's not coming up in my browser. The Zoom is coming up as a separate entity, so that is, I think, where my problem was. When we shared directly, or we did it before, it was in my browser.
Okay, I see what you're saying. So it's okay if your Zoom goes away, you can share your screen and you can use your desktop. You won't be able to see it, but whatever you're doing on your desktop, we will be able to see.
Okay, then I'll go forward that way.
Yep.
And I don't have the slides. That's the problem. So I'm not going to be able to see or be able to advance the slides because they're not showing.
So do you have that tab open in your browser?
Yeah,
for the Google Doc?
Let me open it back up.
If not, I can share the slides and then you can share the screen to go into your course if that's preferable.
Let me go back in. Sorry for the technical difficulty.
The great thing about a recording is you can edit that out.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So now can you guys see where I am?
No, I can't see your screen at all.
Okay, okay.
Yep, now I can. There you go. There's your slide.
All right.
Perfect.
So I'll just go from here. Yeah, for some reason I can't share my browser. I don't know why. I don't even have that option. So
okay.
Welcome everybody. Sorry for the little technical glitch there, and hopefully I don't create any background noise. So I had talked to Erin beforehand and to try to determine where to do this from. And I'm in my office, and usually I would think it would be quiet because it is CEP week or exam week. But for some reason, there are a ton of students going in and out. So I apologize if there's any background noise here. So I just wanted to talk to you guys a little bit about my journey and where I came from. By no means am I an expert in OER. For me, it's, I'd say, fairly new. I've been using it for a couple of years, and it changes so much that I feel like I'm never going to be an expert, and things change a lot. So I just wanted to share where I came from, being from the business discipline, because a lot of the people that we have been working together and working on this have been from a lot of the STEM sciences and social sciences. So I came to Buff State actually in 2012 as full-time faculty, and I was in the math department at the time, even though my degree is in business. And while I was working in the math department, I worked for a graduate program, and I taught undergraduate statistics. For the statistics book, it was automatically mandated as to what book we would use, and we all used the same textbook. And for any of the graduate courses, I didn't use textbooks. So when I came over into the business department in 2015, I had to come up with, I was brought in very late, just to give you a feel for it. I was brought in to the business department at the end of summer to start teaching in August. And I was given 2 classes that were open to teach, and was told, okay, you need to find your own textbooks. So it was my first time of ever, finding textbooks, and I met with one of my friends who was a rep for the publisher. And we went through, and the 2 classes I was teaching at the time were marketing, like an introductory to marketing course, and a marketing research course. And the sticker shock that I had when she talked about how much each of these textbooks would cost for each of the students, I was just dumbfounded. Just for a marketing research textbook, the cheapest one that we could find was a little over $200 for each student. For the marketing course, there were several different options, but they all ranged from anywhere about $120 to over $200 for each one. And many of the marketing ones had courseware, which I know a lot of faculty like to use. And the courseware with the textbook was the same cost as if I got the textbook alone. So it was kind of this whole bundled price. And so I started trying to figure out what's the best option. So right then and there for that semester, I ended up working with, because it was a friend, saying, okay, why don't you give me these textbooks and I'll try them out and give me access codes for free. So I was able to at least give my students 1 semester of free textbooks, just because the publisher was hoping on getting continued business from me. I went into that knowing in the back of my mind there had to be something else. I had to figure out what else it was that I could do. And I ended up going to this OER overview, just, what is OER about? And a boot camp. And similar to the types of workshops that we've had across SUNY over the past several months and that continue on. And we had them here on campus. And I found out about them through Mark McBride, which anybody who's involved in OER on SUNY campus or any of the SUNY campuses knows Mark McBride, and he's kind of the head charge of all of this. And I was working with him. He was a librarian here at Buff State at the time, and I was working with him on an active learning initiative. And he's the one that introduced me to the concept of OER, and never heard of it. And so I said, you know what, I'll go figure out and find out what it's about. So in October, I went to the overview. And then I think it was somewhere around November, went to a 2-day boot camp where Lumen Learning came in, and several different experts came in who had used OER. And then we did a little bit of a hands-on session at the end of the boot camp, trying to figure out what we could do. So it was a really eye-opening experience, and I realized there has to be something for what I'm teaching next semester, which were going to be my normal classes going forward, not just classes I was given. And I just kind of hit the ground running and said, I am going to do this, and I'll figure out a way, and just dove in and got all the resources that I needed on campus to help me in any way that I possibly could. So going back to the resources on campus, we started to also explore what was happening to the Buff State students, and were they actually purchasing textbooks? So our librarian and one of our instructional designers at the time, who's no longer with Buff State, conducted a survey, and they replicated a survey that was conducted for the Florida virtual campus to see if the things that get in the way of student learning in regards to textbook costs and course materials hold true on the Buff State campus as well. So their two goals were to gather data on the actual impact of textbook costs for students' performance, and then they also wanted to understand both the student and the faculty preferences regarding textbook formats. And they conducted a whole survey. I'm just going to show you a couple of the different results and then show you how they paralleled in my classes as well at the end. But one of the things that we found, or they found when they did the original study, so they did this, I think it was somewhere back in 2015, that looking at 2013 data, so this has only gone up since then, is the projected annual textbook cost just at Buffalo State was over $11 million. So that's a big impact. So anywhere that you can cut costs out of that number, that's a big impact for students that, you know, have trouble paying tuition, where most of our students receive financial aid. You know, putting textbook costs on top of that is huge. So I wasn't alone in thinking that, you know, gosh, I need to decrease costs. We were thinking about it as a campus as well. Some of the other results that came out of this, so as you can see, quite a staggering number, about 76% that said at some time while they're here on the Buff State campus, they chose not to purchase a textbook because it was too expensive. And then, you know, some of the other impacts, you know, they've chosen not to register for a course, they've taken fewer courses due to the cost, have dropped a course, etc. In addition, 48% of the students that they surveyed said that they received a poor grade due to not having a textbook. So there is a correlation with having a textbook and getting a decent grade. Little bit surprising, so 44% of students said that when they have purchased a textbook or the required textbook for the course was not even used by a professor. And when we also surveyed, or they surveyed the professor side here, 75% of the professors said that they use 70% of the textbooks. So there's a disjointedness between what the students say and what the professors are saying in regards to using the textbook. So if the students aren't seeing value in the textbook and it's too costly, you know, they're in their minds thinking, why should I buy it? Financial aid is a big thing. You know, a lot of our students have to buy books directly from the bookstore, so that becomes an issue. So sometimes when you're trying to find other methods, it's not always an option. 15% of our students have their textbooks covered completely by financial aid. So that leaves 85% that don't. And 57% of our students on campus have less than 25% of their textbooks covered by financial aid. So that's an out-of-pocket cost to students who might be receiving financial aid for their classes, but not necessarily for their textbooks. So the impact on campus as a whole, what we found is that a lot of them are buying, you know, the students are trying to buy their books outside of the campus bookstore. As I mentioned, some can't. You know, sometimes their financial aid makes them tied to the bookstore. They might rent printed books, buy used copies. And you can see the library reserve copies, very small percentage, 25%. And when I show you the impact on my students in particular, you'll see that goes even further down. And if you've ever put a textbook on reserve and gotten it back at the end of the semester, you'll see that, not always the best option to have a reserve copy. It is an option, but it takes a lot of wear and tear. In addition, we found that faculty are also trying to reduce the cost. So they are doing some of the same things, putting things on reserves, using older editions, trying to find used books from outside sources, other things. But then we also found there was a good percentage that's not doing anything. They realize this is the software I want to use. Here are the textbooks I want to use. So this is what is mandated in the class. Also, based on this survey, one of the things that we found out for Buff State students in general was that most students prefer a hard copy versus a digital copy. So I'm going to show you at the end that I replicated some of these results and expanded this survey within my classes because I wanted to see how OER impacted my students, and the results are a little bit different. So what I did next, and this was, within those OER boot camps, and then working on my own and working with the resources on campus, I just started searching. And the very first thing, the most logical thing, was to search for textbooks. Now, there's more sources than this, but these are the sources that I had available to me at the time, back at the end of 2015, going into 2016. And one thing I want to note is that I was looking for upper level courses. So the two courses that I was looking for to teach in the spring of 2016 were our Capstone course, which is the penultimate course that they take within the business program, and then also an upper level elective of marketing research. So they were both 400 level courses. So I started searching through some of these links. These are all links, so if you guys get these slides later and you want them, they're there. I'm not going to access them right now, but at the time, it was really a hunt and peck to try and find different resources. So for example, at the time I would go into OpenStax, I'd have to actually go into the link and see what they have available. And there was no central repository that had all the different links available. Our campus actually created a first central repository that I was able to access, and now with openness through SUNY, we have a more centralized repository and several different ones as well, and each campus might have their own. So it was really at the time a hunt and peck to try and find a good textbook. In regards to marketing research, there was absolutely nothing. To this day, I still have not found anything in regards to a marketing research textbook. And at the end, I'll kind of explain what it is that I'm doing because of that. I did find a couple of textbooks on strategic management, which correlated with our Capstone course. And some of it was what I wanted to teach and some of it wasn't. But the good thing about open source textbooks is you can move them around. But time was of the essence at that time, because remember, I was now in November looking at courses and looking at textbooks and trying to get everything set up to teach the strategic management being a new course for me to teach these in the spring. After looking at textbooks, I started to search for whole courses. And at the time, these were the main ones out there. They still exist and tend to be the stronger. There are some other areas as well. Lumen at the time didn't have anything in business, now does have several different options in business and nothing in upper level business. OLI doesn't have anything in upper level business at all. I don't know if they have anything in business at all. Open Course Library didn't really have anything that would match. But the two that were kind of a gold mine for me were MIT, which I had used before, not even realizing that these were OER materials. And they have whole courses out there where you can pull their syllabi, pull their assignments and different things. And some are full, some are not full. And I had used them as a resource to help, with some of the readings and figure out some different things. And I had pulled different pieces in from them in the past. But Sailor Academy ended up being this kind of gold mine for me. And they continue to evolve. And it was this shell of basically all different types of business courses, from introductory courses to upper level. And it was the most comprehensive list of courses I had seen within the business discipline. And as I searched through there, I did find a strategic management course, which to me, it was like jackpot. I had struck gold, and I was able to at least have something to start with. One of the things to note that we were told by our provost on our campus is that even if they are OER materials, we will not link out to a third-party site. So I had to figure out, how do I get this course within our own learning management system, so within Blackboard, and then manipulate it in the way that I wanted to do it. Because although the course was full and had, it had a syllabus that had all the different modules, which I actually liked the structure of the modules, had all open education resources attached to it, and even had exams and assignments, they weren't exactly all things that I wanted to incorporate into my course anyways. So it was much better to bring it back in. After searching for courses, then I started saying, okay, well, are there other resources out there? Are there resources for PowerPoints? Are there instructional resources? Are there test banks? Are there practice problems? Are there practice exams? What else is out there that I could use? So the ones that I looked at the time, you can see the three that I actually have links out there were ones that were actually relevant for business. So Khan Academy, it was limited, not a lot of business materials, but I did find a lot of good instructional videos on statistics that I was able to bring back into or link out to, but put them in my shell for my marketing research course. iTunes U was completely new to me, had no idea that it even existed, and has some really great lectures and videos, especially as you start getting into things like leadership and different arenas. And the videos were really good. And I actually learned about those videos from Sailor Academy because they had some links out. So those are free resources. You don't have to have an Apple device, and you're able to go out and use iTunes U for some of the different lectures and videos. And then something that I had already used as supplemental resources within my graduate courses were TED Talks. And being able to link out to those, whether it was for a reading per se, or a supplemental video within my course itself when, within the classroom. And those are updated so regularly, and there are such a wide array that you can really go and find all kinds of different TED Talks that relate to different pieces and modules within the business discipline. And then finally, I went and looked at case studies. And case studies are interesting in the business discipline because they allow us to connect to what's happening in the real world. And I actually met with one of the other faculty members who was teaching another section of our course, of the Capstone course, and talked to her about OER materials and asked her why she uses the traditional textbook. And her number one reason was for the case studies. And I was kind of taken aback because as I looked at the case studies, because every strategic management textbook that comes from every publisher has a whole slew of case studies. There are short case studies within each chapter, and then there are long case studies that are used for longer term projects within the end or as an appendix within the textbook. And as I started to dig deeper into those case studies, I realized how outdated most of those were. So we would have textbooks that had new versions at least once a year, sometimes twice a year, which is, in my mind, kind of crazy. And I would look at them, and so here it was the end of 2015. I'm trying to create case studies for next semester for 2016 for assignments and things we're going to work on. And if you looked at where that data was pulled from, even though it was a new version of the textbook, some of those case studies were 2012, 2013. You're looking at 2 to 3 years old by the time the student is touching that case study. So I had already used supplemental case studies, so I knew there were a lot of different places to go to. I put a couple of links in here, but I couldn't even fit all the resources that are out there in terms of other case studies that you can use. They're much more updated. They come with, teaching resources if you want them. And there's so many different links and places that you can subscribe to. And some are free, and some are free but not open access. And some are open access, meaning they have a Creative Commons license, and some are paid. But there are ways to even reduce the cost of a paid case study. For example, this semester, my students did a team project using one case study, and that we evolved it as we went through different modules within the Capstone course. And different teams would present different analyses based on the same case study. And the case study was a very current case study from Harvard Business Review. And there is a third-party website that allows you to set up almost like a little Blackboard shell that I could link into from Blackboard so that my students didn't have to go to multiple places. And I could take a $9 case study and reduce it down to just over $4. So this fall, the total cost for every one of my students in terms of any types of materials for my class was $4. And that's the most I've ever charged or had charged for any materials within my courses. So even if you're looking at, just smaller case studies, there are ways to reduce the cost as well, even if they're not open access. I think that this is a very, very relevant portion when it comes to business because as I've sat on different panels with other faculty that have used OER in other disciplines, they've stressed the point that, when you're in math, nothing changes. A theorem is a theorem. When you are in, if you're teaching in chemistry, biology, molecular structures don't change. Everything is basically the same. So those disciplines don't change dramatically. But when we are talking about business and the business discipline, it changes constantly. And with the advent of information technology, driving the changes in technology and globalization, things change at a very, very rapid pace. And I didn't want my students, these are seniors, to go out into the real world using old data and old information. I wanted things to be relevant and current and engage them in what's going on in the real world now. So kind of looking overall, the main course that I designed was this Business 430. It's our Capstone course, Strategic Management. So I did use the shell. And when I go into Blackboard, I'll show you the shell that came over from Sailor. I still have it. And then I changed it quite dramatically within our learning management system. And every single semester, I get feedback, verbally and written, from the students in regards to, what's working well, what's not working well. And I change the different modules within my Blackboard system, and I'll show you that, so that, hey, this video is a little out of date. This, this reading isn't exactly what I want. Oh, there's a current event. And I can plug all that stuff in or remove them very, very easily. And it allows me to make the course extremely current, and I can change them on the fly. I can change them, right within the semester. I can change them today for a reading that I want to assign tomorrow. So it makes it very, very flexible. You can do this in the textbooks too. You can change the textbooks, bring them into PDFs and change them and, resequence them in Word and annotate and all of that. I decided instead to actually do it as different links. So I'll show you what that looks like in a second. So the course itself, had all the readings, and you'll see that readings don't necessarily always mean readings in my class. And we have cases that I use in class as supplements, and then we had a semester-long case. The class is very discussion-based. So for me, it was very important that the students were actually doing the readings before they came to class. And if the students don't have a textbook, or if they're not using the textbook and not reading, the class wasn't very discussion-based. So I could see how much the students understood based on what they were reading. And then I could also incorporate in current events. I could link out. So from Blackboard, you can link out to anything that's on the web, and you don't necessarily have to make sure that it's an open education resource if you're linking out to it. All right, so let's go to Blackboard. Can you guys, Erin, can you guys see that?
I can, yes.
Okay, just want to make sure. Okay, so I just have my whole Blackboard open just so that you can see. And when instructional resources are librarians, and we had a lot of help from Lumen Learning and a lot of help from Sailor to figure out how to get a Sailor course completely into our Blackboard system. So it wasn't easy, and it certainly wasn't something I could do on my own whatsoever. So, one of the biggest things I can say is use the resources that are out there. They're invaluable. I never knew how much a librarian does until I got involved in OER. And when they exported the package and they brought it in, this is kind of what it looks like. And if you went, I won't take you out to the Sailor course for time's sake, but if you went to the Sailor course, it looks extremely different from what the Sailor course is. So they brought it in, and it came in as all these different little folders, and you can see some of them are even empty, so I don't even know what they were. Some of them are just, what were verbal paragraphs within Sailor, and they talk about the different textbooks and things like that. And then some of them actually go into specific readings. So if I go into any one of these, here was a reading, and they came in as attachments. So for me, the biggest thing was I had something to start with. It's like using a template in PowerPoint or Word. You're going to change it and customize it to what you want. But I had a starting point. And I personally really liked the way the Sailor course was broken out. So with these different units, the unit 1, and you can see it becomes very long in here, the unit 2, organizational goals, unit 3. So I kept the 5 different units and condensed them and made it more readable for the students. So what I'll do is I'll go now to my course. I'll do the one that I'm currently grading for. I'll be sure not to go in the grade book. And you can see this is actually a merged course. So by putting everything online, I manage 2 different sections of the course in one shell. And then I'm able to, so I have 2 different CRNs, and I'm able to then make sure that I have consistency. And the very first time I did this, I did not merge them, and it was tedious. Trying to, if I updated a reading, I updated it in one place, and then I'd have to remember to go update it in another. If I sent an announcement to one, I'd have to send it to the other. Doing it this way allows me to have cohesiveness over the whole thing. So, we have their home page, and everything for them that they need is on their content page. So I insert a course calendar for all my classes, allows them to see what's going on, you know, what's due. It links automatically back to this course calendar and all that. I have the syllabus, information about me. So this becomes a little bit more how Sailor actually looked. The student version of this, you know, looks a little bit differently. As we know, this is the faculty version, but there's my modules. So this is the content that came in from Sailor initially. And now it's been revised several times because now I've taught this course several different times. So if I went into any one of these, I would have subfolders, and that way I can reference. So I give them a learning outcome, and I can reference, and I say, you know, go to folder 1.1 and read, and I can tell them which readings to do. Okay, they do read a lot in my class, as you can see. Okay, so some of them, the ones that have these links were the ones that initially came in from Sailor. Ones that do not, okay, are ones that I've added. And as I go through different things, so some of these are files, some of them are readings, some of them go directly into textbooks. So this is a textbook one, and I give them information as to what they should read. The other thing that I like to do, so if I link into a textbook, I link directly into the chapter. You can link just to a textbook overall and then reference where to go. I just make it as easy as possible for my students. So I link directly to the chapter that they have to read, and I do that with each one. So this one links to chapter 15. This would go to section 2.3 in chapter 2. So I was able to do all of that. And then I also created through, you know, I used to put everything in one folder, but now I have everything in that they need to access, where they're going to get any sort of grade is all in one place, because there's so many reading materials and everything's electronic that I found that sometimes they were getting a little lost with all the folders. So putting everything that they need to get a grade into one folder made it a lot clearer for them. I received so many fewer questions and panicked phone calls about anything. And then, you know, as I use something and then decide I don't want to use it again, I just make it unavailable. So the students don't see it, but it's not lost. It's still there. And then I also keep, you know, a hidden folder that they can't see for things that, you know, hey, I really liked, you know, we used this strategic plan with one laptop per child, and we went through this type of stuff. As I'm showing them a strategic plan document, I showed them different strategic plans. So as I got documents, I pop them in here, and that way I have access to them in my class. All right. So that's kind of what the Blackboard portion looked like. So it is possible to take those courses, you know, with the magic of your instructional designers and, you know, Lumen Learning and, you know, all the different people that help, to take them and actually put them within your system if that's how you prefer them. So after that, and after teaching it and changing it every semester, I decided last year, okay, I said, I've been using this now for a year. How do I know if it's working? How do I know if the students actually like it? Because I personally did not provide hard copies in the library. And if you remember, the initial survey said that students prefer a hard copy. I could have, but I like to change things as things change, and I like to add stuff in there. So I decided not to, and they can still print. They can print from there, or, you know, we can get them printed if they want, but I chose not to do that. So I decided to create my own survey, and what I did is I replicated and extended the Buffalo State survey, which was based on the Florida Virtual Campus, and based on some other literature that I had looked at, but I wanted it specific to my course. I have since expanded the survey to include another professor who is also using OER, and to include another course that I've used OER materials for. but the findings I'm going to show you are just for Business 430, so just this course. Some of the results that I ended up getting out of this was, number one, I wanted to know what's so important when they are choosing a textbook to my students. And you can see overwhelmingly it's cost. Okay, so format is a secondary factor. It's not saying it's not important, okay, if they had a choice, but cost is the number one factor. It's a huge issue. You have students, I did a game in one of my classes and had trying to talk about competitive advantage, and I stood there with a $5 bill in the front of my class. And, I asked them, who wants this? And it was all about positional advantage. And when the student who finally got up and took it, his first comment was, oh, thank God, now I can have lunch. And, that hit me. Students are talking about not having lunch, but I'm going to assign a textbook. I just personally couldn't do it. So looking at these students, just so that you know statistically in the demographics of it, they ended up being half female, half male. And this was all undergrads. And this data is based on approximately 200 respondents, and 65% of these students received no financial aid for their textbooks at all. So that kind of gives you a background of our student body, especially within the business discipline. So this pie chart is a little bit in contrast with what the Buff State survey said and the Florida Virtual Campus said, that students must have a hard copy. So I thought, okay, I hope I'm okay then, because I haven't provided it, and students are saying cost is a factor. There was another question, and I didn't include it in here, but basically 65% of the students said that given a choice of format, they would choose the cheapest available. So given a choice of format, cost becomes more important than having a hard copy. So that kind of validated these same results. 10% said they prefer digital, 2% said they have no preference whatsoever. The ways that they access cheaper textbooks paralleled the other studies. Many of them buy used copies. 45% of my students share their textbooks, and I've seen that. I've seen that in class, and very few, a very tiny percentage actually use reserves or borrow from the library. So that becomes kind of important. If that textbook's too expensive, what happens? You can see 45% said they choose not to purchase it. Now, 75% on our campus as a whole said that, but I still had quite a big chunk that said they chose not to purchase it. And I have seen that. I've reduced the textbook cost in my marketing research course from that $200 and some down to $30 some for a digital copy, and I've still seen students not buy the textbook. And it's very evident. You can tell when a student's not buying it. I put the book on reserve, and it's destroyed. I can tell you that right now, but it's there for them. The same types of options. They took fewer courses, chose not to register, they dropped a course or withdrew. So it's an issue. It's a major issue. So then I want to know, what impact has it had on my students? And this was eye-opening, because I wanted to say, did it make a difference? Did students really care? And I could personally see the engagement in my class. Students are coming to class. I do not take attendance. Students come. I could see the good conversations that the students would have. And I actually received many emails this past semester of students saying, wow, this reading was eye-opening. Oh, wow, I loved this reading. And one student would start to send me readings to say, can you put this in the course? I'd like to see this one. And so it was nice to see that they were actually engaged with the materials. These are just some of the findings that were over 60%. Increased engagement, they increased participation, increased grades, increased their experience. They were more likely to complete the readings, which we know is a good thing, and more likely to complete assignments. One note with the types of readings, as you guys saw in that Blackboard course, is I don't necessarily use textbook readings. So there might be textbooks here and there, but there are several different modules or several different folders that I don't use textbooks at all. So I might use current event articles, or there might be just a chart that they're going and looking at, and it makes it breaks it up a lot. And they especially liked the videos, and I could go in and see who's watching the videos. I have the way to access that. There were several other results that were strong too. It increased their interest in the subject. They gained confidence. They increased their independence and self-reliance, increased collaboration. There were many other results that were significant as well. So in the end, knowing that money was important, did they save money? And would they take more classes? 82% said yes, they saved money. The 12% that said they don't know, I don't know. Maybe they're not paying for their textbooks. I don't know. The ones who didn't save money, I did not ask open-ended questions afterwards to find out why. So if they didn't save money, maybe they're, getting their textbooks fully covered. Maybe they didn't buy the textbooks anyways in the past, so they're not saving any money. I don't know the reasons behind that. But then as for would they take more courses that offered OER, overwhelmingly, 79% said yes, we would take more courses. Only 3% said they would not take another course using OER. So I think that showed me that, okay, this is working, and it's good to keep going with this. So where am I going now? I continue to update that course and on the regular. Based on the feedback that I've received, I've already started changing it for next semester based on feedback I received from my students this semester. And I'm working on 2 other courses. One thing I want you guys to note, it's not just a flick of the switch. It is a long process. Even when I found that course and it was like, oh my gosh, jackpot, I found a course, I still wanted to customize it to what I wanted. I'm marketing research. I'm hoping that next summer to completely create a new textbook on that. And one that I can actually share, and I know it'll require going to a research methods course, it'll go to a marketing course, so I'm gonna have to pick and choose, and then pulling some statistics. I know it's doable, and I know that most of the materials are there. So even though I reduced the cost down to $30-some from the $200 and some, the price has gone up. So each semester it's going up, even though I'm using a local publisher, and I want to reduce that cost down to nothing. And then I'm also working on a supply chain management course. I've used Open Education already in here, incomplete. And I teach this course as very activity-based. We do a lot of tours and stuff like that, so it's not textbook-oriented at all. I had the students start to do reusable assignments. So this semester, they're actually going to help create pieces of the textbook using Open Education resources and putting them together. They do a lot of collaboration with each other, and I'm hoping to collaborate with a faculty member at one of our community colleges in New York State. And then if I have time, I just wanted to show you quickly, and I won't show the whole thing. I just want to show you an example of a reusable assignment that students have done, and I'll just show you like 30 seconds of it based on, and able to me to publish this within our, online textbook. So this is something that a group of students did in my class.
What are your main duties throughout the day? How does a daily life go for you?
Okay, so hi, my name is Ayana Ryan. I'm an account manager at Eagle Micro within the Commerce and Fulfillment Services Group. My main responsibilities right now, I own the account for Samsung, a company called Valve, and I work with another company at times, which is Apple. We are the main point of contacts for our vendors. We work
Okay, so the link is there again, feel free. That's out there. I did not put any licensing on that. That was just one of the examples of students. And as we put together this textbook, students who did a good job in their assignments will be linked into this textbook. So, it's exciting for them. They're not handing in a paper that I'm going to take and grade and they never use it again. And sometimes you find them laying in the hallways. It's going to be an assignment that, I'm showing other people that they can put on their resume to say, hey, look what I did. And they're gaining real experience because they're going out into industry and actually working with industry professionals to develop this stuff. So I found it really exciting, and the students really enjoyed it. And it was a brand new course. I wrote it, and we're just, I called them my guinea pigs. And we're testing OER from all different angles within that class. So just to wrap up, just a couple takeaways that I wanted you guys to see is, number one, OER materials aren't quite at the level of other content areas. It's not like the STEM sciences. It's not like the social sciences. There are a lot of things for businesses in the lower level areas. OpenStax is working on a whole bunch of materials right now. Our bookstore, actually, Barnes & Noble, just contacted me last week, and they have courseware that has, basically tests and test banks and practice questions and things like that for 5 different courses. So organizational behavior, principles of marketing, principles of management, intro to business and entrepreneurship. And the cost is reduced. It's not like buying the $99 or $100 and some dollar one. It's $50, but if it's set up as a course fee, it's $25. And then the bookstore will also print materials for $15. So, working with the library becomes important. With the bookstore. They're not competition. They are willing to work with faculty. So there are lots of materials that are coming out there, and they're coming out there regularly. So, here the links I showed you earlier and where I started are very different than the links that are out there now. There are so many more materials that I might go in today and find things I did not find last week. It's changing that fast. Overall, the impact that the OER materials have had on the students has been well worth my investment. And I mean my investment of time. It has taken me a long time. It's not, something that I can just, I got this and now, put it into my system and it's done. But once I have it and I can refine it, it becomes a little bit easier. And I create my own notes section, and that makes it easier. And, being able to share with other faculty would make it, it's very worthwhile, and being able to get other people's ideas and input. And then lastly, you're not in it alone. Okay. So it doesn't have to be a daunting task. There are, several of us that are faculty that are always willing to help. You can email me at any time. I'm, love to work with people as much as I know. Like I said, I'm not an expert. Your librarians are just unbelievable resources. And I think you guys have the next webinar is librarians. And then, instructional designers, anybody who's actually been involved in it. It's amazing. It's amazing how much help there is out there, and you do not have to go about it alone. It doesn't have to be this huge daunting task. So that's about all I have. I thank you guys for listening to me. I'll hand it back over to Erin.
Thanks, Lorena. I appreciate that. I do have a couple questions that have come up, so I will grab those for you because some are further back in the chat.
Okay.
Let's see here. I do have someone who was talking about textbooks and the value of having them for vocabulary. And so the comment here is that my main reason for textbooks is vocabulary. Students cannot understand the content without knowing the terms that are used. And that is true, right? Asking if you have any ideas about how to do key terms without a text.
I'm going to actually talk about this from an industry side rather than from an academia side. Like I said, I had 17 years in industry, and being in industry, you don't always know the vocabulary or acronyms, and we would create these cheat sheets. And just having it's like being back in school and having a list of vocabulary terms that students could go back and reference. So it's almost like having a big glossary available. You can also, having OER materials doesn't necessarily mean not having a textbook. Just because I very rarely use the textbook in mine, going OER could simply be adopting a textbook. So you can still have the same reference. And what's nice is when it's digital and they want to search on a word, they can find it. versus, trying to go back to the index in a textbook and find the word or the person and then going back. So that's kind of my input on that.
Terrific, thank you. When you were showing your Blackboard course, there was a question about how did you find the original course that you pulled material in from?
Oh, the sailor course was just hunt and peck. It's so much easier now. Like the screen that's up right now, that openness. I mean, go there, you'll find everything. It's unbelievable. At that time, it was hunting and pecking and sitting in one of those workshops and just like, oh, nothing here. Oh, nothing here. Oh my gosh, look, there are all these courses. And I was just dumbfounded. So I found it. And then at that point it was, okay, who's going to help me get this into my course? And that's where I started working with, I had the right people at the right time that, helped me export it and then import it back in.
And two questions before we end. So Pat is saying that she frequently uses marketplace.org for several business classes as well as TED Talks. What might be some other strong resources you would recommend to reduce the need for a textbook?
Honestly, a lot of videos. So, TED Talks, I love TED Talks, but you can even go to YouTube and you can see if you link out to it from within your Blackboard, you don't have to worry about it. If you want to bring it into Blackboard, though, you have to make sure that the licensing, and you can see the licensing at the bottom of them. So YouTube videos are great. There's stuff for everything. Khan Academy has great instructional videos if you want to know how to do things. And then, honestly, sometimes I don't have enough things, and this is where I'm having the students help create them. What I didn't show you is I had students create different, I don't know what you want to call them. You know how you have like inserts in your textbooks that discuss a specific topic. And I had students do that last semester or last spring semester in that new course. That new course is like all my guinea pigs that help do that stuff. So, lots of resources out there. It's just a matter of now it's openness. It's the best thing, but it's going out and searching what's out there. And the hard part is figuring out, okay, is it an open license? And what does this license mean? And then, going back to my little cheat sheet of what the licensing means and figuring out, can I bring it in? Or if it's not open, then I can just link out. Your library is another great source because, for example, if something is for Harvard Business Review, so those are copyrighted and students can buy them. But if your library has a subscription that students can access, then you can put the link in there and you can send the students to the link through the library and they can do that. So those become free resources even though they're not open. So, there's many different ways to do things.
And the last question, just under the radar from Joanne, would the students have access to bookstore resources after the class ends?
It depends. If within my course, I can leave the course open and let them have access to it. I could, if they wanted to, I could send everything to the bookstore and the bookstore will print it for $15. But it would be at a request. Right now, I don't have it that way. I'm lucky when my students can read while they're in the course, much less after, but yeah, so it depends. If as I make things open, so like the plan is to create for those last two courses, create an open textbook that I share with everybody, not just within Blackboard, then yes, the students have access and as well as anybody else. So depends on where you put it. Within Blackboard, once I shut the course off, no.
Okay, so there's a clarification comment that she was referring to the courseware the bookstore contacted you about that was $50 a course.
Yeah, I don't know because I don't use courseware, so I'm just kind of the information gatherer for her department with that. I like to do everything myself. I kind of do it the hard way. But the courseware, I don't know. If they printed it all out for them, then yes, but the actual digital part, I doubt, and it depends. Now, we have some courseware that goes across 2 semesters that's not in business, and then they have access to it for the full year as well. So I'd have to get further clarification from our library in regards to that. But, you know, the courseware is fairly new to the business discipline. There isn't a lot out there in terms of courseware. And I think that's kind of a hindrance. I know within our department alone, a lot of faculty like to use the courseware, you know, and I can't blame them. It's there, it's good, it makes it easier. And, you know, that's stopped a lot of people from saying they'll go that way. So I don't know completely.
Thank you. And so we're just a little over time. I appreciate those of you who were able to stay on for that. I want to thank Lorena, especially for being our speaker today. We really appreciate all of these resources. The slides and the recording will be made available. I posted the link in the chat. It's the same website that you went to register for this webinar. So the slides will be there. Just give me about a day or so to get the video up, and I'll put those links there. Our next webinar will be in January. We don't have the exact date yet. We're working with several librarians who are coordinating an effort to talk about librarians and their role in OER adoption on campus. So there will be a communication that comes out, and on that same website, the January webinar will be posted there with registration. So a date will be forthcoming. So we hope that you can join us for that. And also, if you have a chance to visit the Open NYS website, there's a multitude of information and resources to get you connected there, as well as faculty profiles for experts in other OER disciplines. So lots of great stuff there for you. And again, thanks to Lorena, and thanks to all of you for joining us today. We look forward to seeing you at our next event next month.
Thank you.
Lorena, could you hit the same button you did for recording to stop the recording?
Yep.
Great.
If I could find it. Thank you.
I know, I think you have to hover over somewhere to get it to pop up.
Yeah, here we go. So stop the share.
Yes, stop sharing, good. And then, let's see, can you stop the recording also?
And